I'm Alex Cheparev, and welcome to Crashing Maya. Hey guys, welcome back. In this episode, we'll do UVs. So first, I'm going to start by showing you guys some techniques to do them in Maya, and then I'm going to use UV layout software by Hedis. You can just Google it, Hedis UV layout. It's not cheap, but it's the best UV layout software there is. But if you don't have it, I'll give you some. I have 3 other videos on UVs on my channel, and I'll show you some tricks now. So let's actually do this. I'm going to go to panels in my viewport. I'm going to do layout, and I'm going to do 2 panes side by side, and then in this panel I'll do perspective so I can see what I'm looking at. And in this panel, I'm going to go to panel and select UV layout, UV texture editor there. So this way I have them side by side, and I don't have to move windows around. So first I'm going to show you how to set up your UV layout window. We're going to use something called UDIM for this. So I'm going to go into where is it? View. Under grid, I'm going to open the options. I'm going to set the length and width to 10 and grid lines every 0.5 and click apply. What this does is it gives us a 10 by 10 UV layout view. By default you only have 0 to 1, which is this gray square, dark gray, and we're going to use more than just that. So this is the way you set it up, and we'll get into why you want to do this a bit later, but let's start. So we can see that we started UVs. We just did a automatic map, which is this button here. It's also under create UVs, automatic mapping, and when you do an automatic map, it does this kind of projection and gives you a starting point like that, but we can't even really use this. And if we look at actually at how this works, how this is built, they're individual bands, right? And if you think about it, they're just loops or tubes shaped into bands. So they're actually just tubes. And if we think of them as tubes, it actually makes it easier to UV. And I'm going to show you why. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to select the object itself. I'm going to go into polygons. I'm going to click on unitize. If I turn on shaded mode, you can see what happened. So what it did was it took each face and filled one UV tile with each face. So even the little tiny faces here is one UV tile. Then we're going to go in and select an edge loop. Just one on each loop. So it would be nice to have a hidden one, but it might be hard to see it. So we'll try that. This one. Here, let's do this. Let's isolate it. That'll be easier to see. Okay. So I'm just looking to grab an edge that's relatively hidden, and this will be our seam. Now the thing is, the reason I'm selecting a seam is because if you think about a tube, you want to unwrap a tube. So if you took like any kind of tube and cut it lengthwise, you can then unwrap it and open and lay it out flat. And that's what we're going to do to each band here. We missed one. Let's see what we have. I think that's all of them. And then we need a loop this way as well, because we need to be able to unwrap it. We need to cut it, because if you have a loop that makes a donut, you need to actually cut it and straighten it into a cylinder. So let's put one probably on the palm. Oops. Here. We just need one on each. So I'm just holding shift and double clicking. You can also put it on the side, but I think because it's just bandages, I think it might be better on the inside here. Now I'm going to right click and select Invert Selection. So this will select everything except that seam. Now if we go back into our UV view and hit this button, when you mouse over it should say move and sew. It's also under here, move and sew. It should do that. Now what I'm going to do, they're all layered on top of each other, so I'm going to go into polygons in our UV view window and click layout and set this prescale set to world. Let's reset, make sure our settings are the same. World, into region, scale mode, uniform, none. For rotate, I don't want it to rotate yet, and click apply. There they are. Those are our bands. So basically, if we kind of look at it, here it is. Here's this one, and if we select sections, you can see how it wraps around. So the next thing I want to do, actually, I'm going to select them again. I want to lay them out in a row so they're scaled to each other. So they're sorted by size. So if you do this, if you go into shell layout, set it to a long U, and rotate will do 90 degrees, and click apply. So now it rotates them vertically and arranges them by size. We select the shell. Now when you're using the shell tool, double click it and make sure you turn off prevent overlap. Otherwise things will start popping and you don't want that. So there they are. So now here's the issue that we're going to have here. We're going to select the edges down here. So just to make sure, this is where our seam is. So our seam is on the bottom, which is right there. That's good. So they're aligned correctly. If we select just one there. Now the other thing I want to do is I want to make sure that the faces are scaled correctly. So this face, if we zoom in here, you see how this face is square and this face is square, and they're exactly the same, but in 3D they're not. So we need to make sure our faces are the same, relate to each other in UV space and 3D space. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to select this band here, then I'm going to go into polygons, unfold, and for this I'm going to use the legacy unfold. So if you reset this, you'll see we want to use legacy unfold, and then we want to unfold this horizontally. So we're going to set unfold constraint horizontal and click apply. So you can see what it did there. We can also set it now to vertical and hit apply, then horizontal. If you set it to none, it's going to do that, so we don't want that. It kind of messes up. So you can do this a couple times. You can also take the smooth UV tool and then click on fold and see if that gives you a better result. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So you can see what it did. It unfolded it for us, but the problem is you can continue to clean this up and do the same step to each one. But I don't like to do it this way. That's why I like using UV layout, because it is much easier. So Let's go back to our original foreview. I'm going to show you how to use UV layout. I'm going to select everything. And, well, actually, I'm going to select just one thing, because if I do everything, it'll take too long. I'm going to select a couple things. I'm going to select this head. Let's do the body and these bands. That should be good to do. I'm going to, once you install UV layout, you'll have a UV layout shelf. And when you install it, if you don't have it, you need to run UV layout by itself and click about UV layout, and then there's a install Maya plugin. Oops. So once it's installed, you'll have this UV layout shelf. You just click the info button and click run UV layout, and this will launch. For type, we want poly, and UVs, we want to make new UVs. We don't want to edit what's there. We want UV layout to make UVs for us. So I'm going to click new, and then I'm going to select what I want to send and click send. Back in UV layout, it'll start to load, and we can scale this window up, and this is what we see. And if you hold spacebar and click middle mouse button, you can drag things around. So we can actually do this. We're not actually moving it in 3D. This is just in UV view. So this is a nice. This is why I like UV layout, because this doesn't change our geometry at all. It just moves things visually so that we can see better. See, I just spread that out. Okay, so let's start. Make sure you set your under edit, set it to D. And that's the only setting to set. And what that does is means if I click Shift C, which is the cut tool, it'll select all the way around. If you, by default, it's set to 10, and if you hit Shift C, it'll only select. Oops. If you click C, you'll only select 10 edges. So I just want D, which will do the whole loop. That's the way I like to work. So let's start. I'm going to start cutting the arms off. That, and you can just hit enter and move it out of the way, and then we'll pick the seam for the arm, which is on the inside, which is that one and that one, and just hit enter. And then when you're done, you want to hit D while mousing over the object that you're done with that you're done with cutting. So this one, I'm done with splitting. I have all the seams defined. When I mouse over it and press D, it will drop it into our UV view, which we don't see right now. So it's kind of a very odd way of working, but once you start doing it a bunch, it makes total sense. So let's cut this. Cut the legs. Let's see. Trying to find a good loop. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, let's do the neck, and then let's cut the body. There are a couple ways you can do it. You can cut it down the back, or you can cut it down the sides. I prefer down the sides, and to have on each side, so you'll have a front and back. There, make sure they're in the same place. Oops. We have to make another cut here. Still connected somewhere. Oh, at the shoulders. There, so now that's separated. Drop that. Okay, now the feet. Okay, we definitely want to cut the bottom of the foot off. And what I'm doing, if you hit C, it'll select one edge. If you hit C and hold it and drag, it'll start selecting a loop where your mouse goes over. So you can do that. If you hit Shift C, it tries to select the loop. And sometimes that messes up, but sometimes it works well. See? And as soon as I separate something, I drop it, I press Shift C. And to undo a tagging, you're basically tagging edges before you do anything first. So when you actually when you're drawing these edge loops, you're just tagging. You're not actually cutting. So then the way it works is you mouse over and then you press Shift C, or mouse over the edge you want to tag and hold C and drag, or just press C. And backspace will undo the tagging. There. Okay, so we'll definitely have a seam down the back of the leg, like that. Here. No. Okay, that's right, it's there. Yep. Now I need to figure out if I'm going to cut the feet off to unfold them easier. Maybe. Yeah, let's try that. You can always reconnect after, so when you're not sure, just do it. That's good. And if you're not sure where to make your seams, think of clothes. So if you were to make this out of you know, a material, if you want to make clothes, if you want to be a seamstress, this is how you would this is where you would put your seams for clothing. So that's where we want to do it in UV view. It's the best way to think about it. And also, if you like taxidermy, same thing. Just where would you make your cuts to pelt your poor little animal? So sometimes you see the loops work great on the first try. Sometimes they'll loop in different ways, in weird ways, and you have to go in and fix it. So far, so good. Okay, so I'll make initial cuts. Just mouse over, hit enter, and that will basically bake our tagging. And then let's pick a seam. You know what, I want to put the seam down the side like this. Let's make sure it went all the way around. Looks like this one didn't. I'm gonna have to sometimes zoom in and check. Alright, that's fine. Hit enter. And D. Now, I can press D on each one, or I can double click D, double tap D, and drag a selection over what I want to drop, and it will drop them. So let's cut the neck off the head. Let's use this loop and put a seam down the back. And for this, how are we going to UV this? So I think the best way to do it is to use, well, first let's cut the eyes out. You can drop that. The nose is fine. Teeth are gonna be tough. Alright. I think the way we want to do this is we want to cut the back of the head. This is not your normal character. And then we'll cut the back of the head away and maybe put a seam down here as well. So let's put a line down here. So I'm going to select those, that way it'll let me go all the way around. And if you mess up, just Control Z. backspace over those. Alright, let's put a loop down here and here. And backspace that. Okay, we're almost ready to make our cut. So I'm going to hit enter. So now we separate this. So I'm trying to imagine if could this unwrap successfully. If not, we'll have to split the skull down here. We'll see the stretching once we get into a 3D view. And this will not unwrap well, so we might have to cut the teeth off. Like that, like that. Then they should be able to unwrap. Okay, we'll make a cut here as well. Yeah, that should be good. So let's hit enter on that. And this should unwrap too. Alright. D, D, D. Alright. And now it'll bring everything back when everything is has been cut. All the seams have been defined. Now we can press U. This will take us into UV view. And here we have our UV tiles and all the objects laid out. So if you just if you hold spacebar and middle mouse button, you can drag things around. So once you decide which one you want to work on, just mouse over the shell you want to work on and hold F, and it's unwrapped. We can also tag a symmetry line or a line that will snap to grid. So I'm going to hold shift and mouse over the center line here, and while holding shift press I. This will define this line as sticking to grid. I'm going to hold F, and then it will make sure that this line snaps to the grid. You can also define it before you hold F. Like that. Sometimes it's helpful to define a line that's not really straight, but you want it to be straight, as by tagging it with I. Now if I hold F, you can see what it does. Flattens that out. So this is where the two halves connect at the crotch area. You can also, if I do shift I on an outside edge, it will loop the whole thing around, and if we try and hold F, the whole thing collapses. So we don't want to do that. So instead I'm going to click here and here, and then shift I in between, and it'll complete the loop. And now you can see if I hold F, so those are the lines where it connects. And let's do the arm. Now the thing about some of these, if you hold F, sometimes it takes a long time to unwrap. You can also do this, shift F. Done. And then we can define a line. Like that. We can also define a line for the wrist, so it's straight. There. So I can do shift F on this one, hit I, this is the line, that. Now you want to make sure that the lines you're defining to snap to grid are aligned more or less to the grid. So here's the grid, the red lines, because if it's not, you'll start to it won't know which direction to go sometimes. It's working well now, but sometimes it doesn't, and you'll get weird results. And I'm holding F while mousing over the shell, and it unwraps it. Now if you don't want to do each one separately, you can do this. You can do shift FF and then drag a selection over all the shells that have not been unwrapped yet, and then let go. And then you can get some coffee, and it will go through and unwrap each shell. It'll take a little bit of time per shell. Those are the feet. We might have to split the toes. Leg. I don't know what that is. Oh, those are the bands. The bands will do a little differently. We'll just let it unwrap, but I have another way to do the bands that will be much easier. That's the eyes, one of the eyes, and the other. That's the back of the head. Yep. Those are the teeth on the inside of the teeth. See that wrap correctly. And this is the skull. We have some stretching, but it's not bad. So when it's green like that, just click out and it'll be done. Alright, so we're done. Now what I like to do is I like to create boxes, because when you pack things, I like to keep them in pairs, and packing basically takes all our UVs and puts them in neatly inside these boxes. So, but if we just pack it, it's going to here's the pack options. It's going to just, it doesn't know that this arm and this arm go together, so we'll just place them however they fit. So I'm gonna click new box and drag a selection like this. Oops. First drag a selection over the shells you want to have a box with, that you want to make a box with, and then click new box. So now we have a little box here, and then I'm going to align these two. I think they should be in a box. Okay, the feet. Oops. Shift I. Wrong. Shift I. Shift I. There. New box. Okay, here are the toes. Alright, so let's see if I, oops, Shift C, and hit enter, it will split them. That. So we need a way to make sure they're all aligned. Maybe if I go from here down, same here. Oops. Yeah, sometimes it freaks out when you define lines like that. So we'll just have to eyeball it. Put some wrap. Oops. And just make a new box. We can now to resize the box, you have to hold Control and middle mouse click and drag one of the corners, and this will resize the box. There. Here are the legs. Let's find the seam down the center, like that, and like that. Alright. Oops. I just wanted to find a line here. There. Or maybe one across the knee. It's not so bad. Yeah. Select them both. And new box. Perfect. Okay, so these are the bands. I'm just going to move them here for now. What is that? I don't know. Those are the eyes, the eye sockets. I want to keep them symmetrical, so I'm just going to define a line down the center. Select both, new box. There. Okay, so the teeth. I'm going to drop a line down the center, and then we're going to drop a line like this. Using Shift I, and I'm hoping this works. If not, it does that. See, so this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna mouse over this point here and hit P. This will pin that point. I'm going to then grab this point, drag it like that, and hit P on that. I'm gonna select this point, drag it here, hit P. Now if I hold F, you can see it stretches out and uses those pins to unwrap. Then I can select these lines. I'm going to delete, I'm going to hit P again over this point. This will unpin it, but now this this line that we created, it will make sure it stays nice and straight. We can get rid of this pin as well. There. And if we want, we can also define this to be straight like that. There. That looks great. Alright, so those are the interior teeth. So this guy, we want to make sure it's symmetrical. And if you hit backslash, you can flip it, reverse it. So this is the back of the head. Now, UV layout is not great at this kind of stuff. Like if I go in and move this over, I'm holding Control and using the middle mouse button, which lets me move individual UVs. But then when I hold F, you can see it does that and collapses. It's okay, we can fix that in Maya. Not a big deal. Define a line down the center, like that. I'm not sure what it will do if I drop a line like this, so I'm going to try. There's some stretching, but I like it because it's easier to paint having the teeth like this. So I'm going to keep it. The stretching is not too bad. See, it's a little pink and a little blue here. It's not bad. Okay. So I want to make sure that these things are together. So maybe we drag a selection of everything and make a new box. And see what it does if we move it. Alright, I think that's okay. I don't like that the eyes get separated, so I'm going to move a box, you hold spacebar and middle button drag the corner. I want to make a box just like this. What is this? I don't know what. Oh, that's the neck. Yes. So I'm gonna define this line and this one. Hit F. Maybe Shift I on this as well. Yeah, why not? And Shift I on that. Let's see, what happens if we do this? Alright, that's good. A little bit of stretching, but I think it's worth it. Select that, new box. Hold Control, middle mouse button, just move things and it'll arrange it. So there we have our little boxes. So the bands. What do we do about those? Now here's a little trick. If you have something that is square, meaning that it's all quads, you see there's no, not just that it's all quads, it's a perfect square. There's each, when it's unwrapped, you can make it into just a single sheet of paper. This you can't. See how this kind of breaks off? Also you have a 5-sided here, 5-sided vertex, so it won't work with those objects, but something like this, you can just do Shift R over that object. If I do it over something else that can't do that, nothing happens. But over an object that you can do that, you can do this. Shift R. Align them all together. Hold F, and then it kind of tries and average it out. Now what's nice about this is that you can just paint it straight, and then your texture will kind of deform with the geometry. Now the bandages, they might you might notice some stretching doing it this way, but I think this is worthwhile. I think the stretching is not going to be terrible. I'm just mousing over each one and holding F to make sure it did all of its unwrapping. Okay. Now I want to put these in a box. There, maybe if I rotate them. There we go. There. And now we're going to pack. So I want to use as much UV space as possible, meaning that I don't want to have to put everything in one UV tile, because then my textures have to be really high res. So I can use multiple textures. So I want to set the quality to best. Map res, let's do 2K. And then for tile, the way, if you're not sure what the numbers are, just think of UV. U is horizontal, V is vertical. So it's asking you tile 1 by 1 means 1 1. 1 horizontal, 1 vertical. So if you set this to, let's say, 3 1, that means it will use 3 horizontal tiles and 1 vertical tile. So if I click pack all, so first it packed everything inside the individual boxes, and then it placed each box within 3 tiles. And let's see, that's okay. We can always fix it later, but we can try doing it again. I'm going to set it to 4 tiles. See what that gives me. Okay, that's not bad. Right, I'm pretty happy with this. I can always move things around manually, so if I want to have the legs and if I want to spread things out a little differently, holding spacebar, middle click, I can place this here. You can place the arms down here. You can have the legs there. Oops. Place the feet here. What is that? Oh, those are the eyes. Place the eyes with the head. Alright, I think that's better. Now when you're done, all you have to do is click send, and then go back into Maya, and you should see it blink. And if we open our UV view, those are our UVs. All done, laid out, and looking great. And if you want to preview them, we can click the checker box here. And if we go into Show, turn off Selection Highlighting, and now we can see the way our checkerboard wraps around the geometry. Let's see, that looks great. So you can see the way there's very little stretching on the front of the face. Actually, it looks great. We can also isolate just to see the rest of the body. So you can see how this is wrapping. It looks really good. We have seams, of course, but you know, they're inevitable, but we minimize them as much as we could. Really like the way the head turned out. Okay, so that's UV layout. You might have to watch this video a bunch of times to get a hang of UV layout. It's a very complicated program to learn. The learning curve is pretty high, but once you get it, it's a huge time saver. Let's turn this off. And make sure you go to Show and turn on Selection Highlighting so you can actually see what you're selecting. So I'm going to do the rest of the UVs off camera. I mean, it's the same process for everything, and when I'm done, I'll come back and we will make a new video on rigging, because we want to set up a very simple rig for him. It's not anything complicated, just a very simple joint structure that we can then pose him. So we can pose him in different ninja poses for our 3D print. And I also want to take it into Mudbox to do some little detail sculpting, so I'll do that as well. And Mudbox is also, if you're a student, it's a free software. You can also get a trial. It's on the, just do a search for Mudbox student, and it'll come up on Google as the first result. Alright, thanks for watching. Subscribe and save. Oh, I'm sorry. Subscribe and like, and save your work.